few days ago I was at a friend's house and we were talking about a situation that had happened recently with a mutual acquaintance. This mutual acquaintance had stayed at my friend's place for months and he had not paid rent. He had abused his generosity, he had lied, he had cheated and done some pretty bad things. Now, as we discussed this person, what was interesting was this guy had the same name as me. That's right, he was also called Dylan. Now imagine that people were talking about somebody and they were talking about you. And you heard all these bad things they said about you. Wouldn't that hurt your feelings? It would, right? You'd feel like, oh man, this feels bad, this doesn't feel great. But if you knew that person wasn't you, it wouldn't have that effect. And that's exactly what happened. What was so interesting and so surreal is that even though this person had the same name as me, my brain registered them as a different person. And my brain understood that Dylan was a different Dylan that we were talking about. Now, what's the difference here? The difference is in the identification with the character, with the person. Because I did not identify with the person they were talking about, because I knew I was not him, I did not suffer. I did not have negative emotions arise. And this is precisely what they talk about in Buddhism. And it was such an interesting, surreal moment, because I've never had one of these moments that so directly illustrated what they are trying to teach in Buddhism in regards to how identification causes suffering. How the identification with the self causes suffering. And so in that moment I knew, no, I wasn't him. I didn't suffer. Because no negative emotions arose. But what if I did, for example, identify with that person? What if I thought they were talking about me? Just imagine it. Let's just consider somebody was talking negatively about you. You would feel bad, right? You would feel, oh man, like, did I really do those things? What are they saying? Like, am I really, whatever they might say? You might at least consider it. Because you are identified with that mind and that body, with that character that they are discussing. And this goes back, and this goes into Buddhism, where they say identification of the mind, identification of the body causes suffering. Because when you think something is you, and you resist life, when you don't allow whatever to be exactly how it is arising, and you want things to be a different way, even subtly, but you just want things to be a little bit different, then you contract, and then you resist the emotions. And the emotions become negative when things happen that you don't want in your life. And that causes suffering. And that's precisely what Buddhism, the philosophy of Buddhism is in a nutshell. And when you identify with nothing, you arise in this sort of enlightened state. And suffering ceases completely, because that identity completely vanishes. So yeah, it was just such a fascinating experience for me to see somebody called Dylan, but I knew I was not that Dylan. So yeah, identification, guys, identification. Think about it, contemplate it, let me know what you think. Catch you later.